Have you ever had that one life moment that just seemed to stop your whole world in its tracks? Like one day you're shopping for robot vacuums and endlessly scrolling Netflix to find that one perfect corny rom-com. And the next, you can't even believe you gave such time and attention to such fragile, trivial things. And goodness gracious, of all the things that should be mattering right now, money shouldn't be one of them, right? Today, we have the privilege of hearing from my good friend here at YNAB, Sarah, and how some unexpected medical news shook not only her entire world, but, you guessed it, even her relationship to money. Okay, Sarah, tell me, how long have you been using YNAB?
Oh, I've been using YNAB for 6.5-ish years at this point. If you count from the time I started using YNAB until now, and don't count the times that I haven't used it.
That is the truth. Okay, do you feel like you've ever just fallen off of YNAB entirely? Or even a little bit? Tell me about it.
Oh, completely. There have been a couple times where, like, I fell off so much that I couldn't even picture using it again. I felt like I had dug myself into a hole so deep that even I couldn't use YNAB again because my finances were so messed up. I was hiding from so many things. Yes, completely.
Yeah. Thanks for being so open about that. That's a lot of people's experience. The more I talk to people, we all have these seasons or moments where it's like, I just can't even look at it right now. Okay. So honestly, not giving me the answer I want, but honestly, how do you feel when you're in that moment where you are out of sync with YNAB? You're probably not using it. What's going through your head?
So I try to convince myself, subconsciously convince myself that YNAB is not the solution I need anymore. Somehow I have outgrown it or my life circumstance is too different to use it. And so I just convince myself that I'm making the right decision by almost not prioritizing my money. I get in this mindset that if I focus on money too much, that I am somehow a bad person. And then that combined with spending on things that aren't quite aligned with me and wanting to hide from that fact, I feel like comes together as this perfect storm of just not using it for a while. And that's happened a few times, especially since all my medical stuff happened.
Okay, yeah. You've had a lot of change in the last year or so. Tell me a little bit about that and what your journey with YNAB looked throughout that time.
Yeah, so I had some pretty serious medical news a year and a half ago at this point. And for a while, I pretty much stopped using YNAB right away. I was facing my mortality. I was thinking okay, so when you're in this situation, money should not be important, right? It's not something you should be focusing on. You should be focusing on family and your health and friends and all of those relationships. And so I pretty much stopped using YNAB right when I found out about my medical stuff. And it wasn't until I realized I was thinking about money more because I was stressed out about it that I came back to YNAB and was maybe this could help me to actually be the person I want to be during this time. And so I picked it back up again, and it immediately gave me the clarity and help that I had been looking for. And I was thinking about money less once I had everything set up in YNAB because it wasn't in here anymore. It was on my phone.
Yeah. What's funny that I keep hearing people say is in the times where they're not using YNAB, it's because they, I don't know, don't want to be controlled by it. But the reason that they come back is because they want control back. We think oh, this is going to limit me and I don't want to deal with it, or it's too stressful or overwhelming. And then we're I actually feel way more peace and I know what's going on when I use it. So the reason we think we're running from it is the reason we go back to it. Isn't that goofy. It's so funny.
It is so funny. We think we don't want to be controlled by YNAB, so we stop using it, and then we end up being controlled by our money stress in the long run.
A mic drop right there. That is a really good nugget. Okay, so what in those times, what do you do to kind of get back on the bandwagon again? Or is it just like, I don't know. I don't know. Tell me what happens.
So this happened recently to me. I had fallen off the wagon again and hadn't been using it. And we had just been spending money on who knows what for a while. And the debt was piling up. And as someone who kind of like built a YNAB personality on paying off all of my debt back in early 2020, it like added an extra layer of shame, because now all of a sudden I'm back with more debt than I had originally paid off. I am like, and it just keeps piling on. And so I was just in the state of completely hiding my head, burying it in the sand. And, I just got to a point where I realized like this stress and this shame is not healthy for me. And so actually what I did, and I was encouraged by one of my coworkers, is I took a half day off of work because I just needed that time and space to sit down and face reality. And so I looked up all of my medical bills that had been piling up, that I had been kind of like trying to ignore. I looked up all of my credit card debt, all of our other debt. I put it all in front of me, and I looked at the money I had right now, and I just faced reality. And what's so funny is that you think that what you're hiding from is the scary thing, but the scary thing is that the hiding in and of itself. Because once everything was in front of me, it was like this huge weight was lifted off of my shoulders immediately. Like I hadn't even done anything about it. I had just made a list of my debts. And then after that, I was just able to make a plan. I set YNAB up again. I made a fresh start. I adjusted my categories to fit my life now and the life I want to be living. And I just asked myself, I said, what do I want this money to do for me? What debt do I want to focus on first? And I also set up direct import. I had never had direct import set up before because it felt like cheating to me. But what would happen is, I would go so long and then I'd have to manually enter transactions for like 45 minutes in order to catch up. And so I set up direct import, and I have used YNAB every day, and my accounts have been reconciled every day since then.
Wow.
I am now a direct import stan for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it was actually laughable to me how much it helped and how quickly it helped. And since then, I think that was like 3 or 4 weeks ago, my bank account balance is going up. My debt is going down. My age of money is increasing. And it's just so wild how simple it is. And like 5 minutes a day of approving and entering transactions, making sure my money is where I want it to be. It's 5 minutes a day gives me that much clarity and peace of mind. I just, I don't know. It's wild to me.
Yeah, I think what you said about like you fresh started and you made a new plan, like you took care of the important stuff first, and then you were realistic about what you actually want your money to do for you, what you need it to do for you right now. Something I'm coming to terms with is like, it's just totally going to change depending on the season. Yeah. Like there are things I'm willing to shell out a little extra for right now that I would have thought maybe was like irresponsible or lazy or cheating before. Like people have talked about hiring a home cleaner, or for us, it's a meal subscription service. It's expensive. It takes a huge mental weight off of my load that I already am trying to learn how to manage. And so just being okay with being in the season you're in and just honestly asking like, okay,
what is actually going to what is actually going to give me peace day to day? What would I be happy that my money's doing for me? Like, also, there's just an insane amount of pressure in the financial sphere. Like, I think it has been so awesome doing these interviews because I just realized these people who I assume have like the perfect money routine and are never phased by life for some reason, they all like have these stories. They've all fallen off and they've taken out new debt when they thought like, I'm done with that. Like, life is life and we're all people, we're all human. So just normalizing this experience of like life ebbs and flows. YNAB is designed to ebb and flow with us. So let's let it ebb and flow. Like, it's okay to have a season where you back off. It's okay to come back in and make it fit who you are now.
And, you know, with life ebbing and flowing, it's important to remember that the effort that you put in before is not for nothing. Like, just because you fell off the wagon doesn't erase everything you did in the past. Because whether it was starting to build a habit or even changing your spending and spending more on what was aligned with you for a while, like, that's still important, even if you stop doing it for a while. It all kind of adds up. And so I kind of see my financial journey as this like trajectory of it's up and down, but it's all headed in the same direction still.
That's good.
And so I've had to definitely give myself that speech sometimes of just because you fall off something doesn't mean that your efforts before were wasted or that it's not worth starting again. So
that's really good. I think I could apply that to a lot of different aspects of my life right now. I feel like part of my personality before having our son was like, I'm the plant girl and all my plants are dead and dying right now. And I'm totally fine with it because I'm getting to spend all my time with my son, like doing the goofiest, silliest things. The other day, it was just buckling and unbuckling a bike helmet over and over again. But he was having a blast, and that's where I wanted to spend my time. And I'll come back to the plants one day. This one is yellowing and dying and whatever.
And maybe he'll grow up to be even a better plant owner, and it'll be like
it'll all be worth it.
Full circle. But you're so right. Like, our life is changing day to day, month to month, year to year, drastically. Like, my life is drastically different than it was in 2020 when we paid off our debt. We went from 2 incomes to 1. We went from living in a home to traveling full time. I went from feeling like the world was my oyster to all of a sudden facing my mortality. Like, life changes. I went from having young kids to now having preteen and teenager. Like, just give yourself grace for having to adjust during these times and changing your priorities over and over again. It's okay. And it's normal, and you should.
Yeah, I would argue that's what life is about. Just following the seasons and growing, like letting ourselves grow and change and life evolve around us. Yeah. So like, why wouldn't our money do that too?
Exactly.
What would you say to someone who's feeling discouraged about just not keeping up with YNAB? Or maybe what would you have hoped to hear?
You are not alone. I know I'm stealing that from the budget nerds, but it's so true. You are definitely not alone. And it is actually very normal and something pretty much everyone goes through. And just be where you are instead of fighting against it. And then give yourself some mental space when you're ready to sit down and be gentle with yourself as you go through the process of facing reality. But yeah, just be where you are. It's okay.
I love that. Yep. That's what we're hearing over and over again. It's just, you're okay. You got this. Yeah. Let's just like go again. Let's do it again. Do you feel like there's a time and a place to abandon YNAB?
I like to convince myself that there is sometimes, but the lesson that I am learning over and over again is that YNAB really does fit in wherever you're at in life if you let it. Because sometimes we have the mindset that, okay, how I YNAB'd 3 years ago is how I need to YNAB now. And if you do that, you will fall off and it won't feel like a fit for you. So I think you need to be okay with constantly adjusting the plan to fit the life you're living. One of my biggest problems and the reason I fell off is because I refused to do a fresh start because I had paid off all that debt and wanted to see that in my net worth chart. I wanted to have that history. And I was holding on to something that just wasn't a fit for my life anymore. And so I do think that can be true only if you let it be true, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I love that. I was not expecting a certain answer. And that, well, maybe I was, I don't know. But I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, those are all the questions I have. Is there anything else you want to say or share on the topic?
I would say if you are ready to get back on the YNAB bandwagon, when you're doing that, focus on where you want to be and not on what's going wrong or the past. Just focus on what you want your money to do for you, and you'll find that it is such a natural progression to where you want to be. So that would be my biggest piece of advice.
Amazing. That is so good. Thanks for sharing. That was awesome. Woohoo! This is great. Okay, I have my work cut out for me in the best way possible.
Y'all, let's give a big thanks to Sarah for her vulnerability and sharing her story. Life isn't just the weddings and graduations and promotions. It's also the downsizing, the heartbreaks, the news you never hoped to hear. When life feels out of control, our first instinct seems to be to just give up on it all. But one day, we'll wake up and we'll be ready to take that little bit of control back. In the moments where it seems like money doesn't matter, to our surprise, we can actually find great peace, great control, and great contentment from it too. It may not look like 5-star international vacations or buying the new car in cash. Sometimes it just looks like keeping that sense of normalcy going when everything else in our lives feels anything but normal. Take the downtime you need to grieve, process, and let's be honest, sometimes just exist. And when you're ready, YNAB's ready for you too, with grace, flexibility, and clarity. Thank you for watching, y'all. Have a good one.